How are you doing? That's what the other person asks. I'm fine. I'm going to write a story about my ex. Sounds interesting. In the story, he gets mauled by a wolf. I'm fine, I say. The days aren't that long. A little light comes in the bedroom window. 3 alarms equal 3 snoozes, and then I'm facing shower water and black coffee in a paper cup. I drive neither slow nor fast. The streets are lined with strip malls, and old neon signs tease about the past. The hot Santa Ana winds are at work, bending the palms and mussing your hair. At work, I write articles in the health and life section. I often have to edit the pieces of superior writers. I tweeze out bad grammar. I am a professional. I microwave meals at home, and as I watch the glass plate rotate, I can feel him 15 miles away. I fear he's becoming a better person, while the cheese on my Stouffer's lasagna turns black. How you doing? It's Monday. People are checking in. I'm good. I exaggerate, because otherwise I'll start to sound passive-aggressive, and no one likes that. I'm working on a new story about how he gets in a treadmill accident and his legs are useless. I think the ending will be a malfunction with the feeding tube. That night, I reach for the remote and fall asleep. The light from the window makes its appearance, and then I know it's time to do this again. I walk out to my car, and the warm winds hit my body like a hug. A piece of dirt hits my eye. It feels like a bottle brush. I drive one-handed, mascara bleeding into my palm. I think he's moving on. Soon it will be summer, and there will be skirts to meet. I'll have to see him at some point in the future. How quickly 2 years pass when you think you're heading somewhere. I'm considering a story where he has to go in for a root canal and gets too much gas. So he wanders into the parking garage and gets hit by an old lady who just got her eyes dilated. I don't think they let people out of the office if they can't walk, the other person says. It's like a law or something. Well, it's just a rough sketch right now.
It's Saturday night, so I leave the house. 10 floors up, there is a roof. I stand on it, swaying. It is colder than I'd thought. I can see downtown from here. A man says, "Nice view, huh? Look at that skyline." It's a view. Just something that's far away. I nod and I take a drag of a cigarette I'd borrowed from Ed, Peter, John, Charles, Sam, Jake, Todd, Eric, or Steve. Thank them all for the light, the break, the dinner, the show, and the rusty glass of whiskey. It never matters by morning. "How are you today?" the other person asks. The persistence is unwavering. "I'm working on a story about humiliation, the lasting kind of suffering." I almost sing that sentence like a jingle. The other person says, "You should think about moving on." "I am," I say. I see an old school friend. This is someone who would never run out of soap or toilet paper. Her hair is fine and clean. People are trying to get into the grocery store while we stand by the automatic doors. "How are you? I hear you're writing? That sounds amazing. God, I could barely write this." She holds up her grocery list. "Are you still a journalist? I remember that stuff you did for the school newspaper, really hilarious." "Well, actually, the Times just asked me to write a piece." "Do tell." That blonde hair is expensively highlighted. "It's about this journalist, actually, who goes on to do a story in Africa and starts feeling terrible. After a short hospital stay, he feels better, except his, is strangely discolored. Turns out it's a rare disease that's only transmitted by animal contact. His paper fires the guy, and now he's suing for... I have more, but she cuts me off. We hug slightly, and after I walk away, she turns around and says, "Good luck with that story. I'll watch out for it." She says this as if it's a modest article on the health benefits of pine nuts. And actually, that's what it is.
I start to see his stories everywhere. The Times, the blah, the new blah blah. They show no signs of pain. Better yet, his adjectives have improved. They seem jovial. He writes, the client was plaintive as his doting wife. Doting. It's a small word, but it reeks of happiness. My pine nut story didn't even make the paper. The fiction I'm writing is piling up. There are now files on my desk titled Death, Injury, Disfigurement, Humiliation, Sexual Mishaps of Grand Proportions. This is really good stuff. People like tragedy. I stopped talking about it so much. I'm asked out plenty, but I refrain from being alone with men. They all want something to look forward to. I hear he's still hanging out with the same crowd, a pandering bunch of fellas who chain smoke and tell mystery stories that are really stories about the women they've lost or misplaced. These inoculants sit around and drink coffee in restaurants, because that's what you do when you've abandoned all other vices. Not a wise man among them. A big night out is no longer a large pile of cocaine. It's 3 hours of complaining while competing for eye contact with the hot British waitress. They are all journalists. They never help each other. They tell lies to other stubbly faces at the table. None of them go to war. I take up hang gliding, surfing, and archery because there is no one to deter me. People get excited. They think, I'm all better now. I heard about the gliding. Is it fun up there? Is this for a piece? It's not for anything. If I liked guns, I would have taken up shooting. I hear the sound of silverware and cabinets closing. They are doing dishes. I am staring at my blistered, weakened hands. It's nice, I say. It terrifies my mind into stillness. One of my little tragedies gets published. I cheer alone in my apartment. When I jump up and down, my grandmother's hand-painted china bowls falls and breaks. I didn't throw the pieces away. I buy superglue instead. It has now been a few months since the breakup. I see him with a woman in the lobby of a hotel. I've come here to have a drink at the bar. I'm writing a piece on the effects of the common bacteria in bar nuts. When I pass by, he does not see me, but I see her. She is a sad replica of Pretty. She's brunette with the age I was when I met him. Her thighs look great in a miniskirt. Her shiny mane is tilted back as she laughs at his joke. It sounds like a soft toss in the ocean. I can't hear her. The lobby is too loud. The back of his head is the same. His black hair is still needing a good comb, hiding that bald spot. He is thinner and uninjured. My voodoo files haven't even creased his shirt. While walking to a party in the Hollywood Hills, I start to have a panic attack. I keep seeing the date. The replay is horrible. The Santa Anas are down to an infrequent sigh. It's warm as the tropics at tonight. I've been talked into going to this party by Vanessa, a friend of mine who thinks that she has some kind of supernatural powers. She is someone I believe in when I've lost navigation. She knows better than to ask how I am. The party is above Mulholland and the roads are narrow, steep and powdered with dry dirt on the sides. We found parking a street down and have to walk the rest. I am wearing a dress that I need to periodically touch the back of to make sure it's still there. Vanessa says, "It's fine, concentrate on you. He'll be famous, but so what?" We're climbing this hill in heels and we're out of breath. I bend over and then lean on a parked Mercedes. "This is a speech? He'll be famous?" "Sure, but who cares about the book? You've got your own stuff going on." "Book?" I grip the side mirror. Vanessa knows things I don't. She's seen the gallery in her office. It's about his year in Africa. Vanity masquerading as altruism. Now, I really can't breathe. She gets me to walk. I hear a pack of shrieking coyotes on the other side of the hill. "Listen, they're having a party." She gives me a watered-down grin. "That means they're killing something," I reply.
A cartoon is posted on the New Yorker site, and I win the caption contest. People make a big deal as though my articles were just anecdotes. The truth is, I come in third. The picture is of two turtles in bed. One is speaking, the other is just a shell, its head retracted. My caption reads, "You never look at me when we do it anymore." So he's dating. Dating? The man does not date. He casually falls, he trips, he has escapades. I was the exception. I was the woman he loved. How was I to know that after a few years he would wane at the sight of a lease for two? This is so wrong that inside my shoes, several times every day, I squeeze my toes together. I find pictures and videos. Okay, I was looking for them. I want evidence that this happened. In one of the videos, the two of us are driving through New Mexico. It was in November. We'd gone to see my brother. At one point, I turned the camera on myself. I'm wearing a beret and an old college sweatshirt. I'd spent every dime I had on a hotel to make him happy. In the video, he calls me Monkey and puts his hand on the back of my neck as I turn up a song on the radio. In the other one I find, he's swinging his grey cat and dancing to Elton John. The camera shakes because I'm laughing so hard. His father dies, a fate I did not invent. I hear this through a mutual friend. There will not be a legacy. He never believed in it, or children. I feel paralyzed. I call a man to cover me like a blanket. When he leaves, I start a fire in the sink. All the files go in. His book does well. In a pitch meeting, I suggest an interview. It is a chance at a feature story. I mention it during a lull when the coffee's gone cold. My editor says, "You have access to him? Then do it." After everyone leaves the conference room, I say the word idiot a few times out loud just to confirm. "How are you doing?" he asks. I have to meet him at his hotel room. The room is cold, too much AC. He is thin, maybe from grief. He greets me like an old friend. He looks Different. European? He's wearing a scarf. He is still tall, with a sharp nose that, when seen in profile, makes me bite my cuticles. I open the button on my jacket and sit down. I'm fine. This is not weird, he says. We both smile, something I'd hoped to avoid. I set the tape recorder down and begin. Were you aware of this region of Casoro before doing the Times piece? I'm absorbing his every gesture, watching his hands, his mouth. I think we're all aware of it. In the last several years, many journalists have covered the area. Now I'm staring at the light fixture. It's one of those frosted glass flying saucers. The whole room is filled with pieces like this. I hate this time warp. But looking around at the suite is buying me a second to respond to that familiar condescension in his voice. When did you know that this story would be a book? My agent called. They saw the article and wanted to see a proposal immediately. I've heard of this. It's a white unicorn story. Yes, but when did you know as a writer that this short article could be a book? He grins when I say the word short. As a writer, he said, you know when you know. The room isn't cold anymore. I feel wet under my arms. I have to steer this back. This is my biggest assignment ever. They won't let me do this again. Even though my editor didn't care about Paul and me, Vanessa was worried when she heard about the possibility of the two of us in one room. I repeat in my head, professional, professional, as I stare at a black and white print hanging near his head of James Dean hunched over a book. How did you meet Akiki? Well, I was down there for another reason altogether. He approached me. He knew I was a reporter. He used to tell a ridiculous story at parties about an African woman working in the fields, chopping brush with a machete. Africa was romantic to him, the way Paris is to other people. He always seemed to exaggerate the amount of sweat coming down her dark skin. A woman's carrying a child on her back in a cloth sling, he would begin. The child's sleeping. The woman is pregnant and bulging. At one point she stops, feels her stomach, and just walks over to a bush, squats down, and pushes the baby out. This is his favorite part. And then she takes that machete and slashes the umbilical cord, swaddles the thing, swings it on her back with the other baby, and goes back to work. When he told this story, the women usually looked astonished, as if it were he who had done this feat. Sometimes people threw out bad jokes. Who needs healthcare? Often people looked horrified. I was the jealous one. I wanted to be like this African woman. Akiki didn't speak English, but he invited me into his home. Because I know I'm recording, I stop listening. He has new shoes, some attempt at a beetle boot. He's wearing a suit I don't recognize. It looks well-tailored. A tuft of chest hair peeks out of his blue button-down. His socks are striped, complementary shades of olive and maroon. I ask a few more questions, except for the usual, what's next for you? The interview is nearly done. He has to catch a plane. This feels familiar. We both stand up. If you need any follow-up, he says, just let me know. He's patting himself down, trying to locate his glasses. I see them on the bed. They are new frames. They look black and Japanese. I say nothing. He lost every pair I bought him. I was sorry to hear about your father, I say. His face relaxes, and he stops patting. I know this look. It's the same face he would make when we got home after long parties or work functions. He would pull off his shoes and throw his jacket on the sofa like a boy after Sunday school. It's his real face. I resist the impulse to hug him. "Thanks," he says. He was old. Well, I'm an old guy now too, I guess. This feels like a practiced statement. I stick out my hand. We shake. He has a Band-Aid at the U of his palm. He grabs his suitcase and then pauses to tap something into his phone. Before I leave the room, I point to the bed and say, "Paul, your glasses."